Okay, there's a part of Michigan that's like out of Michigan, right? And then you end it all the way to Lake Michigan, and on this side. But then there's this side. It's really pretty, and there's a lighthouse, and then it's like Port Huron side, where you get lighthouse adventures. So like that's my dad's side on the right, or like over on this side is like lighthouse memories with like my Mellish family and my Aunt Lonnie and my grandma from Hawaii and all of them. Like all this side. And then sometimes we'll head out, like we'll be all up in Timberlake and Hartwick and goddamn like Cadillac and stuff. But then we head over to this side, and it's like we end up with like a bunch of like yeah, like this. End up going to Lake Michigan, with like my uncle Adam, and like that part. I haven't been there since like middle school, but I have memories of like getting seasick with like my mom and my cousins and stuff like that. So somebody just said I might have to put a goalie post up on that part of Michigan. This part's my Michigan where you guys went boating and you can remember and astral project the images into other people's minds. And like this is the part with the childhood nostalgia that I have on like some of the roads like from east to west, and people I'm blowing their minds right now. Somebody on Doop Doop, I think it's Kat or Sammy, or frickin' Maka or like Mars or somebody. It's a whole group of like these people stalking me using their telepathy. I just like had an image of this nostalgia, and somebody started freaking out because that's who their childhood's like basically. And they are kind of probably swip swapping on my childhood and like giving it hell because they've been exposed to this part of my life. And there's like a bunch of like talisman alchemy on some of the like objects permanence that I've like been able to bless as a shaman and like sort of like practicing my ordainment. So when stuff like forest, like kind of breathing trees and like the sky and stuff like that start like fizzling in with like old Michigan lake memories and stuff like that, it usually keys into over to the back to the Ellis family and like some of the bikers and stuff like that my uncle used to ride around with. And then it goes down to like Indiana and stuff where the Hooksama's ranch is, and like that's where we end up with like I went to Gary for a little bit, and then we drove through it on while I was on tour with Standing Still, um, one of the metal bands that I was in, and like that's kind of where that part, yeah, kind of got these people caught up because if Kat and Sam and Jessica are like kind of treading in the mix down here in mid Michigan, a weird Michigan like kind of sauce, but like in mid Michigan, we don't practice the same types of nepotism every time. And in fact, it's a lot closer to like this like bottom of the barrel busking, especially in places like the tri-state area, like Flint, and up to like out by like just the 810 and stuff like that. So like people in, yeah, and like Sterling and then is like a difference. That's the other side of like Mount Pleasant and stuff like that. So like that's kind of where the privilege starts to also get snobbier, but then they like to dem out from like Republicans to Dem as you head further to Lake Michigan, and that's where like Hadilladoo is at, and like New Buffalo is at the bottom of the privilege on like Democrats. So if you go all the way out there, you end up with that part in like by Grand Rapids and stuff. And Grand Rapids is saucy, and they have like a lot of really cool stuff that Kalamazoo doesn't have, or Detroit. So like but like it's definitely around. You see stuff that's like been transferred and translated throughout Michigan. So um, It definitely, and it starts to bleed in with my like first time through college unofficially as a little kid brother moving my sister into Western, and me being around Western at all during that time of my life kind of advanced me into a college student the right ways, and maybe some of the wrong ways as a preppy kid, because like I became a really goody two shoes for academia, and like a constant need for external validation on it. So like my grades aren't always the best. They were never the best. I get a lot of like C's and D's and fail out of stuff. So like I'm kind of half cocked on some things with my ADHD and undiagnosed autism, because I get put with a lot of burnouts. That's why I have like so many tattoos and stuff like that, is because like I'm befriending like the tough kids, and my mom wanted me to be like kind of tougher, so cuz like I guess there's a lot of racism towards like my dad growing up, and my mom just doesn't like seeing this side of Michigan have so much like power over me. So Kat and Sam are like white, and they kind of toppled over me. And so did all their girlfriends, and they got now there's like a huge mob law of feminazis and turfs and gay people that co-opted a lot of my Japanese culture and cosplaying and like this Filipina trans girl thing. So now they're running around with like all of that, and like yeah, they may or may not have like done it incorrectly. If it's spiritual and they believe in witch, you guys all believe in witchcraft now. It got super trendy. They sell tarot decks at Spencer's. Come on, it's hard not to see the like propagating that's going on to get people caught up with the parts in psychedelic like kind of like exchange that end up leading to experiences like I have of being abducted and like all these other things, right? And they're running a whole like potential Rufalin like thing and like human trafficking me, while they're getting me all fucked up on scripts and shit, and then trying to phase me back in, or maybe that's where I'm getting abducted by the government studying me with Harvard ever so heavily, and like it kind of like it just has this like kind of eloquence to it, right? Of a time where I was more this, and now I'm getting images of like my time in middle school and fifth grade when I went from a charter school into a public school and started like hanging out with a lot more kind of lower class, like being able to see both ends of like high and low here in Michigan via public school, and then access, and then comparing it to what my parents were like putting me through, which in fifth grade I got to go meet my uncle Kavika, one of the first like Hawaiian relatives that I got to go bump into like that, and that like is he was into breakdancing and dreadlocks and stuff like that, so like I kind of got to look up to that guy, and I didn't get to see that guy till like 5 years ago, and like 20 now it's like about 8, it's like 5 to 8 years ago. My math's always silly, but like yeah, it was like probably like since I moved here about 8 years ago. I went out and we got to see him, and he gave me a pot brownie, so I know he's cool. But like, yeah, I used to look up to that guy. My mom was like, "Oh, you'll just be like him," blah 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 blah, and I'm not like him. So like, it's kind of a letdown now to see like back to this whole gift giving standard and religious Christian shunning here, because it feels like such a double standard to be born on Christmas and require as much excellence and perfection to appease the general like stratosphere of my family's well-being and their hopes and dreams and things like that. So like it's just this facilitation where I start to get this dreamy overlap on nostalgia, and these people also grew up, a lot of them grew up here in Michigan, and like they kind of like there's this like weird expectation on my cognizance of it, the my being able to like consciously navigate um, and that's why people are like kind of using me and exploiting me, is because like I dipped for like a good decade out there, and like now I'm like growing up here. It's like real weird. It's not quite where like I should be with like prep culture and people, and it's not quite all the way extended down into like crime and liberal like paraphernalia and stuff like that. So, and that's what seems to be what won a lot of like Bernie Sanders to Trump voters, is that like the shithead behavior and dirtbags were gonna be like articulated right and highlighted in the movement of like Trumpsters and like stuff like that, and the propagating of like leftist luxuries in a right wing spin. And so like once lockdown hit, it it kind of hailed a lot of high signs for a lot of the preppy kids to continue to go railroad a lot of the like hippies and subculture junkies over here out of their subculture groups and their festivals, and like all of their like even my trans culture, they've already decided that I am not worthy of like kind of like this very cosmetically imbibed tribe kind of thing. And they are basically going to be able to utilize at least a little bit of their, because they're coasting on my coattails, and at least they'll be able to utilize like some sort of it here on the imagery of Michigan and like springtime and where the sun's at in the world, because they practice the Wiccan culture that overlays on a lot of the weird Puritan type of French like cultures and stuff like that. So like you end up with a little bit of like Cassie's parents live, like grandparents live out there a little bit, and like it kind of like shows how they are actually a lot more left leaning than they are right, but they end up conforming. So there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of nepotism being peppered in with this gift giving and expectation that if I pay for your surgery, or if I give you a car, or if I give you a play, whatever, is that you'll follow every last expectation that I've set as a parent, because the millennials fucked it all up and they didn't get as many jobs as they needed to, and they're displaced like me. So like if that's what's going on, that we're creating incentivized starvation over fiscal welfare and like different funding and stuff like that, that of course they're gonna put a nice guy in jail and like try to just exploit the nice guy as for as long as you can. So like it gets people, because if there's human trafficking involved, and it gets people in from like we're just pulling people from like Mexico in, but realistically there's more like Canadian aliens here in Michigan than there are Mexican. But like they're trying and profiling me as a Costello, but like as a Castillo, and like as a I'm only like 15% Puerto Rican. I'm very mixed, but like it's minuscule. I'm like half Japanese over here on a big chunk of it. There's like Filipino, Chinese. It's like has like a little bit of everything there. And then my mom's side is and they want me to run my mom's side's bag of like colonialism and Polish like Cold War Reaganism and like Nixon era politics on a rebellious tough guy burnout fizzle out like Joe Dirt, without like giving you the whole cleansing palette of like what they give to like my preppy cousins who like do auto and like banking and construction and stuff like that. And it's more deacon work at the church, and it's kind of heavier in some ways, because you have to go talk to people who are old and stuffy and boring. But like at the same time, as you go, you learn to like, and that's where maybe I missed out on college, where other college kids had soft landings for their college failures. Mine were on hard knocks in Chicago, where no one can save you, and there was a lot of me having to do things alone for the first time. And so now I'm back doing things alone, but people are looking at me like, why are you doing it like that? It's like, dude, I'm from the city. I'm like a punker liberal rock star wannabe I'm a star fucker from the city, dude. All I wanted to do was like get good at music and get popular and like make a change in the world with my art. So like as that slowly went from music into like photography and film and adult industry and porn and stuff, that it ended up kind of balancing out my focus from something more musically focused into something more visually, like kind of like something that actually makes money. Because the music industry, if you don't already have money, is very, very, very difficult to break into. And with $50,000 of student loans being placed squarely on me, and then like my capacity for executive dysfunction to also like maintain a job for like a good steady amount didn't come until like I moved out here and started working like jobs on my own, getting to work them the way I like to, and feeling it out. And I'd work them a lot longer, to be honest. I worked my lids job for this probably the longest one for like it's not even a full year. So that's another problem, is like I have a hard time getting hired because I'll end up like tripping on acid or like hanging out and trying to get to know myself better as an artist, because that's what matters to me, is making drawing a line in a sand, aesthetically speaking and authentically towards my art and my music and stuff. So as the first, Hawaiian born off-res here, post World War II and modern day contemporary Michigan, it was supposed to make more of an imprint on how people could become closer to the Hawaiian people and stuff, to create that nice spark of diplomacy, where instead I'm being hurled with insults for telling the truth the way it is, so flatly. And it's just I don't think we got on the right footing with everybody, and it's putting a lot of people into this, like, it's putting me in a box, and it's putting other people on limits and stuff like that too, potentially, especially if like there's going to be a lot of people getting away with things for long amounts of time via like my experience. If these people are stealing from my dreams and my ideas and thoughts, and they've been wearing them like coats or something like that, instead of like just talking to me and then having me show you the experience, then it makes sense that they're exploiting something on top of that alongside with just to teach me a lesson or just put me in my place or whatever it is, because I'm confident, I'm charming, I'm clever, I mean, I'm articulate, I'm well read, and like and I'm killer on the bass. I freaking play like drums and guitar and piano and shit. So like it makes sense that maybe people just like didn't get a good look at me from the get-go, from the jump, and like it put things on a weird like slanted axes for people to manipulate both my consistency in realms of leisure and consistency, uh, towards my well-being and good feelings, and then putting a stake claim in on them, and then buying it and flipping it outward, which doesn't help me or my people or Michigan or any of these weird American standards for diplomacy and freedom. So that's my thinking, is there's a lot of hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy and double standards here, and what you're allowed to be exposed to in Michigan and how long people want you to be exposed to it. I think it gets people a little bit peeved off when you take too long tripping out in the woods, but like you need to do that stuff. And if people are actively trying to take away nature from other humans, we're fucking up. So like that's kind of my thinking here. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and cut you guys loose. Yeah, lots of nostalgia in the air. Watch out, everybody! Watch out. There's all sorts of good things that like we don't have to look at becoming, and also like things that we can just like pair off on the right ways, and people become bridges to their like truer potentials in humanity, and we all level up. I mean, like there's got to be something more than just the physical realm that we currently occupy, because the intellect, we're talking intellectual function, there's got to be something outside of my body, and what it is, well, we're trying to figure it all out day by day, and I think disclosure is upon us. I think disclosure is vastly upon us, and we'll be able to rifle around through the information and stick with some of the nostalgia. If you're allowed in it once, shouldn't you be allowed in it again? Type of blue-blooded kind of way of white flight thinking and stuff like that. So I don't know. Yeah, white flight, white strife, whatever the hell. Michigan's all up on putting on airs for, and then just like, or whatever they do, you know. This ain't Chicago. No, it ain't North Side. But like,